Hey, business building warrior. This is Jim with another episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. Thanks for being a listener. If you're new around here, maybe this is one of your first episodes. After you've listened to this episode, I know what you're going to be thinking. I'm going to make a prediction. You're going to think, wow, that was pretty amazing. What a great interview. I wonder if there's any more of those. Absolutely, there are. We've got over 550 episodes at silentjimdotcom. Hundreds of them are recent conversations with students of our flagship Amazon training course. You can find it at this website, provenamazoncourse.com. Everything we're going to talk about today is contained in the training modules inside of provenamazoncourse.com. My guest today is Marchell, first name only by request. There is a video to go with this episode as well, though, and she's been on quite a journey. She's built an incredible business. Her most recent month, as I'm recording this, is December of 2022, where she talks about heading towards hitting $20,000 in sales for the month, which is fantastic. We're very proud of her for that. It's been quite a journey getting to this point. She made some pretty big mistakes early on in her e-commerce journey by jumping into private label training. She dumped way too much money into it. You've heard this story. If you've listened to several podcast episodes, you've heard this story many times before from our students and guests. They started off trying to build private label. They realized it was a dead end. By the way, we've been shouting that from the mountaintops for years around here. New sellers should never start out by attempting to launch a new product, a new brand, a private label on Amazon. If you're new to Amazon or new to e-commerce, especially, never try to do that. Well, she learned the hard way. Then she found this community, and then her business started to take off with the model that we teach to virtually all of our new sellers around here. That, of course, is the REPLENS model. And we teach all the Amazon seller strategies. We've been doing this, me personally, for coming up on 20 years. It's been the only income my family's known. We've got the most established e-commerce coaching program in the industry, coming up on 19 years with nearly 10,000 students served. We teach all Amazon strategies for all levels. But if you're new, we don't teach private label. You have no business being in that arena if you're new to selling online. So she started there, made some mistakes, lost some money, found this community, started building a beautiful business. Part of what I really love today, and I think you'll be able to tell from the way the interview flows, was just her backstory. We typically don't spend a whole lot of time on people's personal lives, but today's story was so compelling that we did dig in to the degree that she was comfortable talking about how, as a young 20-year-old in the Philippines, which is a very poor country where the average hourly wage is $1 per hour, she became the head of the household at 20, raising several siblings. Incredible. It's how she went from that to being in the US, successful entrepreneur, full-time. Keep in mind, she has a full-time job. Even right now, as we're recording this, I didn't realize that till towards the end of the show today, but she's working full-time and has built an incredible, profitable business using the strategies that we teach around here. I think she's an up-and-coming leader. I think you're going to see her name and face around a whole lot more after today. And I also think you're going to benefit greatly, regardless of if you're brand new or if you've been around a long time in this community and you've got an established business. She's got some very specific tips and strategies on how she finds replens and profitable inventory, including a tip that I'd forgotten. I heard from a student several months ago, and she reminded us of it today. Pretty powerful tip on how to use Seller Central, how to just jump right into Seller Central and find a whole bunch of great replens pretty simply. So enjoy today's episode. And again, first name only today by request to protect some of her anonymity. She doesn't want to be swamped with a bunch of messages after this. It happens sometimes to our guests. So we do this. Sometimes we do audio only or first name only. Sometimes people have jobs and they don't want their boss to know, that sort of thing. We're happy to honor those requests. So if you're thinking about being a guest on the show and telling your success story from our community, we'd love to protect your identity if that's something you're requesting. But today, we're going to have first name only and meet Miss Marchell. Enjoy. So Marchell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
It's truly a pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting to know you. We just spoke for a couple minutes before we hit record today, so I know as little as the rest of the listeners today. Let's get into your story.
Yes, yes. So I have been an Amazon third-party seller doing retail and online arbitrage for about a year, following Jimmy Smith's REPLENS model, the replenishable model, something that I've learned from being subscribed to the Proven Amazon course from your community, the pack, we call it.
Right.
The pack houses all the catalog of most everything what people need to know to run an Amazon business. And there are many modules there, different business models to follow. After having seen the Amazon Seller University, I went to the pack and it has the Amazon Seller 101 and the 0 to 100K side hustle to full-time income module where you recommend people start when they're starting.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
right.
great place to start.
99% of all our new students, we try to funnel them in that direction. So that's where you started. How long ago was this?
Just like over a year,
About a
just over a
year.
year. But my
Okay.
initial introduction was backtracked 2 years ago from 2020 when I paid a really expensive course on private label, which is a huge mistake.
Oops. Talk us
Yeah,
through
it's just a
that
big
briefly,
oops.
unless it's too dramatic or.
I just knew that I needed to, I wanted to start a business.
Mhm,
And I thought e-commerce is the way to go. But I didn't know any better. I thought private label is the way to, as an entry point, but it's not. I
mhm.
was kind of
Yeah,
misled,
yeah.
in a way.
You spent some
So
time on YouTube, I'm guessing.
yes, yes. And that's how I found it because I've been researching and it was
We
a,
and I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, Marchell, but that's a sad story we've heard so many times. So many times. People started with private label because that's what everyone on YouTube was talking about. And they end up spending, and you don't have to tell us how much you spent, but I can tell you it was between $8,000 and $40,000. And they got basically nothing for it, except maybe a garage full of product they couldn't sell. I
yeah,
mean, that's the story we've heard
yeah.
over and over
That's
and over and
true.
over
That's
for
true.
years.
Yeah. And then the third part is, I didn't have that money. I had to find that money. And this, when it did not pan out, was very painful.
I'm
And
sorry.
I had to do a step back, like a year at least. I
Yeah.
was thinking, oh, here I am again, trying to find something. I probably did some network and direct marketing before, like half a dozen of them. And finally, I thought I have e-commerce, and then I did that, and then that happened. So it was sad. I needed a year, as I was mentioning, just to recover from it.
Yeah.
But there's the one thing though that happened out of it. Just trying to look at the positive side of it is I did get set up with my LLC and my professional seller account at the Amazon. You have two choices: individual or
Mhm.
professional. So I
Right.
got that all set up. So the verification process, takes a couple of weeks or so. And when I was ready to jump back in a year after, everything is there. I could just resubscribe. It just get continue. So that made it quick. I'm a sole proprietor of my business. I have a very, very supportive husband, but he's not involved. And in the beginning, I think when I was listening to your podcast, most of the successful sellers I was listening, like couples, husband and wife, father, son, daughter and mom. I was like, oh, that is like the key success factor. I had that impression because maybe it's just a podcast that I was listening to. And I had
Right.
to, like, I thought, I wanted my husband to be part of it, and it was like a source of contention for us for the beginning
Oh, I'm
stages.
sorry.
He it's not his passion. It's not so. It's outside his job. He has these other things he's pursuing, his philosophy and how to make a world a better place in his own way. So I contacted seller support and I said, "Hey, do you have any podcasts? Can you direct me to podcasts that are actually like single or doing it solo and
Mm,
successful?" And they're very super helpful. They gave me like maybe 4 or 5 names and podcast number. So I went
wow.
ahead and listened one after the other, just listen. And then I felt encouraged. Said, "Oh, okay. So it's possible. It's possible to succeed in here. It doesn't have to be a couple. There's many people who are doing it solo. They're succeeding. And so that just gave me courage. Like, okay, I
I
can do
will add
this."
in one caveat hearing you say that, and I completely
Yeah.
agree. Whether your spouse, now it is important that your spouse is supportive,
And he is
but
supportive. Yeah.
if they're constantly berating you and belittling you and like, oh, great, another great entrepreneur idea. How much is this one going to cost us? Right.
Yeah.
Like if that's a rough scenario, but
Yeah.
if they're supportive, you can find other like-minded entrepreneurs, other
Mhm.
crazy people, as my wife
Mhm.
calls us, because my wife is not entrepreneurial at all. If you ever come to
Yeah.
one of our live events, she actually does a session for
Yeah.
the spouses of the crazy people, is what they call us, right? Like it's all in good fun. But she is my number one cheerleader, and she is great at reading people.
Mm.
And she has really great instincts if I break it down into, hey, this person's talking about doing this project with that person. Do you think it'll work? And if she knows the people, she knows, like her female instincts are incredible. But business numbers, Amazon, she doesn't even listen to this podcast, right? So no, I'm kind of a solo, but don't do it alone is the thing I
Yeah.
wanted to say, Marchell, because you probably learned that too. Like, make some friends in the community, some people in other business building warriors who listen to this podcast, or people who live near you from our Facebook group. All right, that's important, because if you try to do it solo, it takes a lot more work
Yeah.
than having that synergy effect kick in of other people, relationships that you build there. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that on top. So there's no wrong way. I didn't want to leave anyone with the impression that you can truly do it solo, because I say all the time, you can't do this business alone.
Yeah.
But
So
go ahead.
I'm a mother of 4 adults. I became a mom very young. I was a young mom. At that time, I thought it was not a good thing, but now I think about it. No, it's actually a good thing. I was a young mom.
Oh,
So I'm
beautiful
still
thing. Yeah, I'm
young
all
right
for
now, and
young big
they're
families. I
yeah.
love it.
So
I love it.
I'm an immigrant to the United States. I came here from the Philippines. As for me, the Amazon journey that I'm on right now is I see it as a journey of self. Uh,
Mm.
so, but in terms of my sales, I'm just in the beginning stages. So when you contacted me, asking whether I'd be interested to be in a podcast, I was like quite surprised,
Yeah.
because I know it would be an honor to be in your show, but I thought, oh, someday when I get there, when I make it, I'm
Mhm.
gonna be in Jim's show. So I wrote to you. I think my initial reaction was, "Wow, really? I'm not a big seller yet." And you
Yeah.
said, you don't need to be a big seller. You just have to be
No.
a seller in a good direction with a
Yeah.
story to
Our
tell.
audience has
Yeah,
told us by the number of listens and views and the amount of feedback we get that series of, it used to be a qualification to be on this show that you had to have some pretty significant numbers. And some people find that to be intimidating.
yeah,
And they found it to be like they couldn't relate to the guests. They were so far ahead. Oh, that person's
yeah,
a year ahead of where I could ever hope to be.
yeah,
But they resonate with episodes where someone's got that initial momentum. They've got a great trajectory. They've proven that it works and they're excited about it, but they have some questions. And those episodes tend to be the ones that get the most listens and the most positive feedback. So we thought, hey, let's just do more of those. We've got plenty of both. Let's do more of those. So I'm glad you accepted our offer. Before we move forward in your story, though, you said you're from the Philippines, which is a country that comes up a lot around here.
hmm
And maybe you could confirm for me something that we share all the time around here, which is, some statistics and facts about the Philippines. I mean, it's a poor country for a lot of people. They really struggle there, right? I've heard that the average salary is $1 per hour, for example, US on the island, like as a typical wage. So when we offer $4 an hour virtual assistant positions around here, and the virtual assistants get super excited about that income level, talk us through, is that reality? Is that legitimate? Have you seen these things? Are those numbers off in any way?
Yes. That number is the typical minimum wage. So what people do is they try to get more education, or they try to get hired by an American company because the pay is going to be better. And usually a single household would be the one to take care of the entire family with that salary that's higher. For $4 or $5 an hour can really support an entire family with 4 or 5 people. It's amazing how that money can go a long way.
Pretty incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So leveraging that fact into a business model where you can hire one or two or three, and there's many in our community who have 4, 5, 6 virtual assistants in the Philippines that they're paying $3, $4, $5, $6 an hour plus bonuses and such. You
Yeah.
think, well, I could never find workers for 4 times that much who are worth anything in the US.
Yeah.
But you're getting highly motivated, skilled, English speaking,
Very
technically
teachable,
savvy
teachable people.
and
Yeah.
teachable,
Yeah.
in such a polite culture too, in such a family oriented culture. Just so many great things about the Filipino culture as I've gotten to know it a little bit, and we've hired many VAs over the years. So it's great to hear from someone who actually lived there, who can
hmm
say, yeah, I'm from the Philippines. That's accurate. Because every time I say $4 an hour, people are like, oh, that's slave labor. That's horrible. Well, no, that spends like $25 an hour in the US, let's say, right? Like that's a good job.
hmm
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. Thanks for
Yeah.
echoing that. Anything else along those? Am I leaving anything out? Anything else you'd like to educate us about the
Um,
Philippines along those lines? Or
they're just the most hardworking people, I think, from culturally,
yeah,
and that they make things happen. They're very action. They do it, whatever it takes. They do it. I think that's a
yeah,
normal. They're very hard workers.
yeah.
It's part
Very
of our
very
culture.
persistent and determined. It's a beautiful thing. Our Proven REPLENS VA program, I'll stick a link to it in the show notes. Kyle runs that program for us. We've got about 400 VAs so far that we've trained and assigned to sellers in this community.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, please continue. How old are your kids? You said they're the older kids.
Yes. My youngest is 25.
Okay.
I have four children. My oldest is 30. So
you don't look old enough to have a 30-year-old, but okay, we'll believe you on that one.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so my entrepreneurship, my exposure to being entrepreneurs from my parents. I think I've heard some of your podcasts. Many of the people from the Philippines, they, the grocery store. You have a grocery store, a little tiny grocery store. We had a larger grocery store. They have several businesses. They were into constructing homes. I guess this is the idea of multiple sources of income. So when you talk about multiple sources, and it's very relatable to me because I've experienced that as a young child.
Right.
But we didn't get an allowance, so I would sell because I want things to buy things for myself. So I would sell chocolate candies to my classmates in third grade for 75 cents for 3, but it's in pesos, so it's like a penny maybe. And even in college, so I would like sell T-shirts with memory Bible verses, and I'd send it to my friends in Davao, where I was born, and would sell it. And now we call it sourcing. You're actually sourcing, and you're sending it in. It's kind of the same idea. We send into the the warehouse of Amazon for FBA. So
wait, what's one of your favorite scriptures that you would put on a shirt?
Oh, I would love Philippians 4:8. Whatever is excellent, whatever is true, whatever is noble, think about these things, because it's about mindset. It's about thinking. I mean, the world, there's going to be a lot of inequities, injustice, unfairness, but but there's also a lot of good, and just focus on that. And it helps you personally, it helps you in your business. Think about excellent things. Focus on those.
You already did that a little bit already on this episode, just instinctually, when you talked about the private label. Instead of focusing on the loss, you very easily could have turned that into a 10-minute sad story. You said, no, you focused on the lesson and the benefits. Hey, I got my LLC out of it. I learned some things. I learned what not to do, and I plowed forward. So yeah, you live out that very well. You focus on the lesson, not the loss, so to speak. What is God trying to tell me here? And focusing and two, you sound like a person of gratitude, which is one of my favorite words. You can tell a lot about somebody by seeing how often they're truly grateful. And you seem like a person of gratitude. So well done.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. So you sold T-shirts.
Yes, but my young life, so as I was like, I had that entrepreneurial streak on me somehow, but not really knowing. But my young life was quite tough. I was the oldest of 7 children from my mom and dad. They had 6 daughters, 1 son, and they're working the business all the time, every single day. There's no day off, no holidays, no Christmases, because the Christmas is the most busy time. People are buying things. So, and the Philippines people, it's very spiritual, because maybe from the Spanish colonization for 300 years, and also quite a few missionaries from the U.S. go there, set up churches, Protestant churches, and my household, there's 2 religions, and to keep the peace, we'd go to the Sunday Catholic mass, and then we'll go to the Baptist church service for one. So like just to do that. Yeah. So I think I had a little bit of rebellion in me growing up. It made me decide, no, I don't ever want to own a business. I don't like to be like my parents. They don't have time for their kids. They're so busy. I was also rebelling against God to say, well, no amount of church, can make the world less painful. And it's like, so I had that rebellion and just stubbornness. I think that's what happens when you're a young child with those kinds of impressions. Yeah. I thought I want a job. A job is stable. I can predict my hours. And so eventually my parents' marriage failed. Their business failed. My parents had to leave. My dad first left when I was in high school, and then my mom. And then I was thrust to care for my 5 other siblings at that time. They were young, from 8 to 15 years old when they both left. And so, and then also at the same time, I became a young mom. So I was.
So both your parents left, you said?
Yes. Both of
it was just you and your siblings on your own?
Yes, just me and my siblings.
Oh my goodness.
So it was tough. And then I'm beginning to have my own, I have my daughter.
Yeah.
But then with the help of the second oldest at the time, she finished after a year or 2 from college. She went back home, and it was just her and me.
Okay.
Making sure that, we have food on the table. I mean, it's me for the first 2 years while she's still finishing school, and then making sure there's roof over our head.
How old were you when that happened? How old did you say you were?
I was 20 when it happened.
20. So you were the head of household over your siblings at the age of 20.
Yes,
in
and
the
I had
Philippines. What city were you
yes,
guys in?
in a city called Davao, which is in
I've
the
heard of it.
southern part of the country.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, so only by God's grace, between my second sister number two and me, we everyone finished college. I was crying, like,
That's
sibling
incredible.
number five, sibling number six was slowly finishing. It was, all my siblings too also pulled ourselves out of our dire situation. We just all kind of like teamwork. All seven of us just, okay, we're not gonna, go to school in the morning, go find a job in the evening, and it was a tough time. Um,
That's incredible. What resilience. That's amazing. Like I don't have anyone in my circle of friends that's been through anything like that. That's incredible.
we had the
Congratulations to you.
church community kind of help us out, so that was
Well, yeah,
important. Yeah.
there's a book there. Have you thought about writing a book about all of this?
I was gonna, yeah, is it, yeah, that's one of my aspirations, to be able to write a book. It's
Yeah.
one of the multiple sources of income, but also about
Yeah.
the story. I think would be nice to be told, and my grandchildren can read about them, our
You've
grandkids.
got to
So
capture it. Yeah, you've got to capture that story. Absolutely.
yeah,
Wow, Marchell,
so
that's amazing.
yeah, thank you. And so I was also having my own kids at that
Mhm.
time. But I was first a mom to my siblings, so a little bit of, then I became a mom to my kids. By the time my youngest son though was born, I became a primary provider for my own children. Uh, and Anyway, my background is communications. My job in the Philippines were primarily radio and television and marketing and advertising. So I have a day job in the morning, and then in the evening I'm doing news. But I have two jobs just to make
So
everything
you've
work.
been on camera.
Yes, I have. I have for a few years.
Okay, because you really are articulate.
Thank you.
With most guests by this point in the program, I'm picking up on their ums and their ahs and I've got those
Yeah.
go-to words that we rely on, especially if English is your second language.
Mhm.
You're just like you're reading off of the perfect script as you're describing your story. You're so articulate. Well done. Again,
Thank
very
you.
impressive. And I can tell it shows. Not to intimidate any future guests because it's just
I just that's
conversation.
my background just so happened. That's, yeah. But thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
very well done so far. Yeah, tremendous. I'm really enjoying this, and we will get on the topic of e-commerce again. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much for putting so much hard work into this today. Appreciate it.
So at the height of my Philippines career, I was the marketing staff for a USA International Development Project, USAID. It's
Okay.
helping, teaching, empowering the poorest communities, uh, build savings and credit like microfinance loans, small loans, tiny loans, $10, $15 that could really
Hmm.
change the lives of people. And the country is a very matriarchal country. So, $10, $15, a mom, when you teach someone, a mom, the mother of the house, the entire household gets benefit. So it's normal. So that's how the USA project worked. It was so successful that my then American boss, who was also my mentor, got promoted. She was asked to come back to the United States. In Madison, Wisconsin was the headquarters, and so there was a job opening. And then she said, Marchell, you can do this job. Apply for it. And I applied. I got the job, besting other candidates. It's an international organization, so it's normal to have different kind of nationalities in that organization. And I brought all my kids with me. There were four, ages
What year?
six,
What year is this?
2003.
So you've been in
For
the United States since
the
2000.
past 19 years, yeah, almost 20 years. So 20 years next year. So at that point, my four kids are 6, 7, 9, and 11 years old. And so we've been living here almost 20 years now. When I arrived in the US, my career has shifted to association management, running large international scientific, medical, and trade associations, putting together international conferences. I was a professional meeting planner. I put together
Really?
large conferences for up to 12,000 people in different countries for a good chunk of years,
Wow,
15
we might
years.
have to get you on our event planning committee here for the Proven Conference. It's nowhere near that size, but we put 600 people or so
Yeah,
once a year, 700 get together.
yeah, I did that job for 17 years. I could do it in my sleep. I mean, meeting planning is something, I mean, it's a very stressful job, but yeah, sure. I mean, I'd love to help if you
Yeah,
need help
maybe
or
we'll
need
reach out to you
suggestions.
offline and because we are planning our event, theprovenconference.com. It's going to be in July 2023.
Oh,
We've got a pretty good system down. We've done it. This will be our 11th time. So we've got it
yeah,
pretty dialed in, but we can always use a pro. So we may
sure.
reach out to you.
So it is here in the US when I met my now husband. in a church dance. And the day we got married, I married one guy, but he married 5 people. And that in itself is a story to tell.
He sounds like a great guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy. And so when my youngest son was in junior high, it's the last kid, so everyone's kind of leaving one year after the other. I thought, I wanted to pause from this international traveling and rethink my life. And I took 1 year off, just kind of, okay, I just take 1 year off, and then maybe a change in career. I have a 6-page resume. I can pretty much do anything. But I said, change to industry, not anymore nonprofit work, no more traveling. I know I'm a good employee. I can get a job anywhere. So I still need to pay the bills. So I started from the bottom in an industry that I have no experience in. But I was happy. It's an 8 to 5 job. In the evenings and weekends are free. I could pursue personal interests. I had certification in dance. I volunteered in my cultural association as a Filipino American group here. I volunteered at almost like a pro bono work running an association. I did that for 5 years. Earlier in my job, it didn't feel very satisfying. That's why I kept moving from one place to the next, but same industry. Even after doing the volunteering work, it still felt empty. And the 5 years of supposedly pause, I wasn't going anywhere. And so I felt into a depression, like always tired, and there's a void in my heart. So I meant to do something more. And then COVID happened. It was devastating for many people. But for me, I was very thankful for it. It really forced me to stop whatever I was doing. And then at that span of 15 months, I read 17 books. Self-help, personal finance, investment, spirituality. I was seeking and want to really find out, get advice from people who wrote books of wisdom. And I did that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also at that time that God worked in my heart. I started to forgive loved ones who I thought hurt me. And when I forgave, it's like the blinders were lifted and my eyes were opened.
That's
and
incredible.
at that point, God said, "Now, Marchell, you're ready." I'll be ready to do whatever He's gonna do in my life. So that's what He was waiting for me, to have that heart of, to forgive. And in the Proven Conference in Louisville, you had a pastor guest who spoke about forgiveness.
Pastor Kevin, my lifelong friend. Yeah. His book, A Fight to Forgive. He was our Sunday morning speaker. So you got to hear him speak.
So I get to hear that. I was crying. Oh, I remember it. Yeah. So here I was going to a seller conference, and you've designed the conference so that the business and faith kind of weave together. So
I don't know how to separate.
It's perfect for me, though. Perfect for me. So
I've sometimes asked Marchell, people will say, how have you woven faith and business together? How do you do that? And so you're asking the wrong question of me. I don't know how to separate them. I have no idea. I honestly don't. They're the rules for success in relationships, in health, in business, in spirituality. The rules for success are all identical. So if I'm talking about success in any one of them, I'm talking about success in all the others at the same time. In relationships, the rules are all the same. Others.
Yeah.
Repair relationships with others if they're damaged. Serve others as you grow relationships. Pour into the lives of others. And God rewards that.
Yeah.
And in business, it's called, profit. In relationships, it's legacy and grandkids. And, in health, it's I'm staying fit because I want to be here for my grandkids. I'm not just doing it so I look good. I'm doing it for the benefit of those that I love, right? So the rules are all the same in all those areas. And God's made it very clear that, you focus to the degree that you focus on others, there's reward there. That's the journey. I love that resonated with you. I hadn't heard that part of your story. I'm going to make sure Kevin hears this episode because there was a fairly large group there. A lot of people. Did you have a chance to spend some time with Kevin in conversation?
Not with Kevin. I did have a chance to meet with many people in the conference as a result of being there. Not
Very
with
good.
Kevin.
Well, I'll make sure he knows that you were impacted by that. Maybe you could contact him and have a little conversation sometime. But that's tremendous. I'm so glad, because for those who don't realize, our conference was over 3 days, but since it was on a Sunday, we had a non-denominational, optional 2 hours, started our day a little early session with a good friend of mine who has a ministry that's all about forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's based on his story of having been attacked in his home and
Yeah.
left for dead by an intruder. One of the most vicious in-home invasion stories in Detroit's history.
Yeah.
And he survived. And the cool part is he built a relationship with his attacker and forgave him. A Fight to Forgive. They're actually making a movie about his story. So it's pretty incredible. But he was our guest speaker that Sunday morning. And I'm thrilled to know that it had an impact on you. That's tremendous, Marchell.
Good. And so how I got to that conference, so that was, that's like a year into my e-commerce conference, e-commerce business experience. I was really praying hard to God, open opportunities for me. I don't know where to go, but I just know I need to take action, get out of the house. I read Robert Kiyosaki's book. I think I have 4 or 5 of his books.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad stories of people who did it, and the difference between an employee versus self-employed versus business owner versus business investor, and how we want to aim to be a business owner investor. And that resonated with me, having from a parents who has construction and we're building real estate and everything. So I said, okay, I'll sign up for a real estate group. So I did. And in one of the weekly seminar sessions they have in August of 2021, one of the featured speakers talk about how he got into his real estate investments. His first or 2 slide decks were talking about how he was an Amazon e-commerce seller. And oh, I said, wow, I was doing that a year ago. I was still kind of grieving over that. But this guy seems to say that he's successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of his talk, I said, thank you for the talk on your real estate investment. But can you tell me more about your Amazon seller? Because that's what a seller experienced. Because he said that's what helped him get into real estate. And he said, well, have you heard about My Silent Team? I said, no. And then he showed me maybe the Silent Sales Machine book in his phone. And he said, have you heard about Jim Cockrum? I said, no. Oh, well, here's his podcast. You want to check it out?
Oh, that's
and so,
excellent.
Yeah, so I did that. I checked the book. I think the Silent Sales Machine book, I bought it from Amazon, and I started going to the podcast and listening. And then I think after a few weeks of listening, I said, okay, so this is legit. My trauma of signing on something that could be disastrous was there. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. So I listened and listened and listened. Yeah. And maybe after 4 weeks, I decided to sign on to it. So September 30, 2021, I signed on, both reactivated my Amazon professional seller account and signed on for PAs for PAC on the same day.
Wow.
And then there, I was learning more. You start with the Amazon 101 module in the pack, and then you go to the REPLENS course that Jimmy Smith teaches. And so I went through that for 4 to 6 weeks, and I made my very first send on October 17. I remember it because it's just a milestone to be able to do that first box. I was so afraid to spend $90. I think it was one I first spent, but I loved it. Okay, this is gonna be it. And then I think it took a while because that must be very, very busy, because it did not get checked in until 4 weeks, but I was okay. I was just listening to the podcast and learning the modules, re-listening. And then I think towards the end of November, I got my first sale. And then you hosted the virtual conference in October, November. That was a very encouraging e-commerce virtual conference you had. It was an encouragement I needed to make me okay, Roger Morton talked about not giving up. John Larson kind of modified it, talking about, find it, list it, ship it, repeat. So, I can do that. 4 things, easy to remember. Find it, list it. So that e-commerce conference that you put together was for me, was a great timing. It's what I needed to hear.
Hey, business building warrior, you've got a good reason to get over to provenamazoncourse.com if you're not a student, if you're not taking the course that has led to the hundreds of incredible success stories that you've heard right on this podcast, the 1,500 plus tagged success stories in our free Facebook group. If you haven't done that yet, what are you waiting on? Right now is the best time of the year to do exactly that, because the prices are going up on that course in 2023, which is one really good reason to jump over to provenamazoncourse.com right now and sign up. But the other really good reason is we're giving it away for free to one of your friends if you sign up. So Merry Christmas. You can see we're celebrating the Christmas season around here. We're putting up decorations. We're getting excited about the best time of the year, but we're also presenting a great opportunity to any new students who haven't signed up yet to bring a friend along with them for that exciting journey. So that's right. Buy one, get one free. All details are at provenamazoncourse.com. Let's make 2023 the most beautiful year ever by celebrating e-commerce, building exciting businesses, doing it with a friend. Let's make it happen. We're here to help make that happen. Provenamazoncourse.com has the details, along with an email to our support team if you have any questions. We'd love to help you make next year beautiful. Let's get back to the program.
It's an encouragement I needed to make me like, okay, like Roger Morton talked about not giving up. John Larson kind of modified it, talking about, find it, list it, ship it, repeat. So, I can do that. 4 things, easy to remember. Find it, list it. So that e-commerce conference that you put together was for me, was a great timing. It's what I needed to hear at that time.
Oh, that's tremendous. Yeah, that we had to do that instead of a live event.
In person, yeah.
It's the only time we ever had to do it that way. And we were pretty nervous because a lot of people had paid in advance.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a live event, which has always been a big deal. But yeah, we made it virtual. And this community just really rallied around the whole concept of like, all right, let's suck it up and figure this out. And I was, it says a lot about this community that we didn't get any refund requests from people who had paid in advance for a live event. And we said, hey, it's going to be virtual. Now, what we did do is we say, hey, when we do go live again, we're going to give you guys free access. So that helped. But everyone hung with us. Yeah. Everyone. We didn't get any refund requests. To my knowledge, and maybe the team didn't tell me, but I'd actually asked at one point and they said, no refund requests. Everybody's on board for, let's just do it again in 2022, which we did. And that's the event you attended here just a few months ago with in August of 2022. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that that event resonated with you and it was an encouragement to you.
Yeah, it was. I was in between sourcing. I was listening to it, and in that conference, Delia Ursulescu talked about how your life experience becomes the backdrop of how you're going to build your Amazon business. Mm-hmm. That to me was very relatable. So okay, I don't have to have special. I just build from what my experience is. I have an international experience. That's right. I have done. I've done. So it's very relatable to me. That's what I picked up from that talk. Even in your early podcast, you'd end your podcast by saying, we're in your corner, we're rooting for you. Simple phrases like that, just enough to encourage someone. Sometimes I'd be in tears just listening. Wow. Someone is behind, I'm not by myself. Someone's helping.
And we take that very serious. Those words aren't said flippantly. We pray for this community. And excuse me, the vast majority of the core leaders are serious, devout, devoted Christians. And we welcome anyone under our leadership team. And we have all manner of worldviews in our community and on our leadership team. But most of the core leaders, we pray for this community. We mean that. We see this as our ministry, meaning we don't just want people to have successful businesses. We're very good at that. And we do want that, of course, for you, Marchell, and for anyone else. But we know that the number one stressor, for example, in most households, if there's marital stress, typically finances are involved. If we can help resolve that and relieve some pressure and stress there, now they're nicer to each other. They like each other more. Life is a little easier. Some of those big challenges are just checks you have to write and bills you have to pay. And now we have more time for our kids. And it can ripple into healing so many aspects. And now suddenly God is speaking to them into their heart in a way that they've been ignoring or maybe angry or bitter or whatever, right? Like, so you can heal one area, it can start to heal other areas. That's what we call it our ministry, because we've seen that play out so many times. So we don't just say that flippantly. When I say we're in your corner, another thing I mean by that, Marchell, is our culture pushes back against entrepreneurship and business success. They see it almost as an evil, ugly thing. The word profit is on par with murder in some people's mind. Like, no, profit is a beautiful thing. That means I'm able to serve people without needing donations. That's what profit is. Right? So let's speak positivity into people who are trying to build a profitable business, better their household, their relationships, their community by creating jobs and opportunities. And we say things like, it's impossible to run a profitable business without dramatically improving the lives of countless others. You don't hear that anywhere else in our culture. So someone needs to support and defend those of us who are out there keeping the wheels turning. Like, we are the economy. 95% of all businesses are small businesses in the US. That's us. If we stop doing what we're doing, like, there's nothing for anybody.
Yeah.
So be encouraged, business building warrior. So that message needs to come from somewhere. And there's others who say these sorts of things, but they're few and far between. So that's why we incorporate all that messaging in. It's not just about Amazon for us. It's about, real people, families, and relationships.
Yeah. It's powerful. Thanks for doing that.
Well, thank you for giving
So
that feedback.
yeah. So my first of November towards maybe Thanksgiving, I said okay, and then we had to go join my in-laws and celebrate the holidays, Christmas and New Year with them. So I for between middle of December until early January, I wasn't able to send anything. But I said okay, if I make $500 at the end of the year, I'll be happy. And end of December 31, I had $1,300. From my initial, I think I had 700 initially, and then 1,300. Said, okay, well, that's surprising. It's possible then. So when I came back from the trip back home in Wisconsin, I started to like just really consistently sending. Even when I began in October, every week I sent a box, and every week was a box, box, and then I did a challenge of 30 replens in 30 days that Jimmy
Mhm.
Smith had that challenge. I think he does that every beginning of the year or towards the end of the year. And so I got to 100 ASINs as part of the challenge. And then in February, because I was sending every week, after 2.5 months, the Amazon River opened up for me. No more restrictions. I could list pretty much many things. Um, and and then my sales became 3,000 in March, and then May, July it became 5,000, and then I went to Louisville. I think I was 5,500 at that time. And then my initial takeaway right away, okay, outsource. What can I outsource? Learn to outsource, because if you want to grow, that's the way to do it. So I was able to find friends of mine who were willing, a couple, husband and wife, were willing to help me prep and ship. And so they helped me right away. 7,500 by end of August, just 2 weeks after returning from the conference. So the conference already paid for my expense, just that. And then September, I had my very first 10,000. It's like, oh yay,
Congratulations.
I made it.
Yes.
10,000, which is like the entry for everything will
At
just the
that,
first
yeah, at
10,000.
that point, we know that
Yeah.
you know everything there is to know about the foundational process of replens. You've got the foundation down pat at that
Yeah.
point. There's always going to be more to learn,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you know what a good replen looks like, and
Mm-hmm.
you know how to play the game, and you know the rules of the game. So 10,000 is a great line to cross, and we celebrate every time we see someone do that.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I reached out to you. Is anytime someone
You saw
crosses
my
that,
post. I think I celebrated it.
we love seeing those
I put it
celebration
those.
posts. We've had over 1,500 of those since we started
Yeah.
collecting them in our Facebook group. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, go to silentjimdotcom. You can jump in our Facebook group
Yeah.
for free. But yeah, we've got
Yeah.
so many of those. So every time someone crosses that line and celebrates, we celebrate with them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, in October, November, I got to 15,000, which is a
beautiful.
50% increase from September, and hopefully December will be 20,000. And
Yeah,
I
here we
think you
are.
had Oscar Matomo, our rock star person who everyone kind of follows him. I think you interviewed him the second or third time, and he was kind of relaying again how his the way he's grown his business. He's such a hard worker, and he was listening to him, and he's sharing his numbers, and I was looking at and thinking about my numbers. What, the same kind of like progression of percentage, only a
Yeah.
lot less zeros, but
Yeah.
kind of the same parallel. Like he started with 20,000. I started maybe 2,000 is when I started, when I had extra money, kind of
Yeah.
the same trajectory. And so,
Yeah. Trajectory matters so much more
yeah,
than your current location.
yeah, yeah,
Trajectory is everything with this, because if you can go from 5,000, a couple months later you're at 10, a couple months later you're at 15, you're figuring out, you're building systems, you're automating, you're learning these little lessons. Yeah, you're on your way to 50,000 a month and then 100,000 a month. It's just a matter of not getting stuck in a rut somewhere where you're the one doing all the work.
yeah, yeah.
Continue scaling, continue outsourcing. Your margins will shrink a little bit as you do, but
Okay.
I'd much rather have 10% of $100,000 a month versus say 30% of $5,000 a month, right? And everyone at the $100,000 a month level, other people are doing all the work. I'll take that money any day. That's
Yeah,
building a system, creating jobs, creating opportunities, continuing to scale and grow. And it's a slow and steady process, which we preach all the time around here. Slow and steady wins the race, right? So well done. You are on a beautiful trajectory. Well, let me ask you a few questions and we'll get into anything that you have for me. But how are you finding your profitable inventory? What is the process that you use, and what to you determines a good replen?
So I still do RA. I go to the store when I go pick up my items that I need to replenish. I also stop by to do RA, where I type in the brand that I'm in front of, type it in, see if there's anything that that is profitable. I started using product keep a product finder, typing in based on the brand, put your criteria, like how many drops you wanted, 10 drops, no lower than that, how much profit you want, how many sellers, and then you plug that in the keep a product finder, and then it will uh, come up with suggested ASINs, and you go and look at each ASINs.
Yeah. Brian Olson has
yeah.
a course, a module, while you're on that topic, inside the Proven Amazon course collection of modules. There's one called Advanced Keepa Training. I think it's called Advanced Keepa, something like that.
Yeah.
He talks about the Keepa Product Finder page and how to use it, how to navigate. There's many things you can do with that, but that's what you're talking about here. Yeah, it's a very powerful page. I was just talking one of our students through before we started this podcast today, how to jump in and do some research. Super powerful tool. For those who don't know what Keepa is, go listen to podcast episode 369. It's a good intro to why we love Keepa, what it does that no other tool does. We're not going to explain it right now, but it's a powerful tool that all the REPLENS sellers in our community are using.
The private label route, it did not work, not because it is not really what you need to be doing when you're first starting it, but also in that particular community, the coaches, they didn't know the leader. They were just hired as coach. So, but which is so different from your community. Your community in MST, all the coaches actually went through your program. They were actually successful sellers in the community who became coach. So it's like, okay, that's just like a stark difference between the two, two programs.
Well,
and then you can still learn private label here. It's just that,
the reason we've lasted 18 years in industry, where the average e-commerce training company lasts about 18 months, is because we don't just go out and hire a bunch of random strangers to do anything ever. We hire from within. Like, I see a guest like you that comes on our podcast, and I'm thinking in my head, this is a leader, should she choose to be so. 6 months from now, a year from now, this is someone who's on stage. This is someone who's creating content, if you choose to do so, because you've come up through, you have an appreciation for the process. You recognize the opportunity, you're succeeding, and you've got a giver's, teacher's heart, and you're very articulate, which definitely helps as well. So that's the kind of people that we bring in to the community as, like you said, coaches, leaders, trainers. But until those people present themselves, we have a vacancy. It's like we don't just go out and hire ever. We never have. I don't think we've ever gone outside the community for anything except maybe a virtual assistant, to do some, spreadsheet work or something. But other than that, if they're going to be talking about this community and our products and our courses, training others, they've come up as a successful student of this community first. That's step one.
Yeah. And talking about community, your community, everything is complementary, so you have the Facebook community, and you can learn from the pack. You get, once you sign up to some specific programs, you're part of a subgroup in a big group. And there's always like if you do brand building, if you do product partnering, there's always like subgroups in there. There's ways to grow. Even biblical business leaders that Jimmy Smith hosts is kind of complementary to everything that you're sharing and teaching. And it's like I do in my morning walks. I have a morning routine I follow. I listen to Jimmy Smith's podcast, and then at middle of the day in the evening when I'm sourcing, then I listen to your podcast. It's like very complementary. It's like full circle. It's just everything is everything you need is there. So the pack is so powerful. Like if you want to learn accounting, go to the pack accounting module. If you're ready to outsource, I just finished that actually last week, the outsourcing module. So I did finish that, and I had my very first standard operating procedure last Sunday, and I hired my very first contractor. Felt good. I felt official.
Fantastic.
And so I was just like, I'm a sponge. I'm like, okay, you mentioned it, like it's called just-in-time learning. Like, okay, now what do I need now? Okay, I need to learn how to outsource, and what are things I need to think about so I just go to the pack, listen to it in between my sourcing. And
put that lesson in your own words, if you don't mind, Marchell. People have heard me say it maybe a few times. There's probably some new listeners. You said just-in-time learning. What do you mean by that?
So as you grow your business, as you mature, there are things that you'll be looking for, you'll be needing help on, you need more information on. The Proven Amazon course library has this library of different information that you can go to grow.
Different modules.
Yeah, different modules and even different models. So if REPLENS, once you do that and you are ready for the next thing, You want to do develop a, branded bundles, you can go to that module and learn.
Right.
Like, yeah, so
We
whatever you
contrast
need,
it.
you kind of basically find it. You find
Yeah.
it there.
And we contrast that just in time learning with, like when you went through university, it's a
Yeah.
lot of just in case
Uh-huh.
education. We're going to teach you a whole bunch of things just in case you might need it someday.
Mm-hmm.
And you fill your head and you memorize facts and data and information and you forget a lot of it, but you test it and you memorize it at the time at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, our approach is very different around here. We teach you what you need for the next steps ahead of you. And once you've taken those next steps, okay, now what do we need now? So we teach you as you go, just in time versus just in case. Yeah, it's been part of our education philosophy a long time around here. Thanks for bringing that up. We're very proud of that, actually. And it is a library. It really is. It's
Yeah.
sometimes people will ask me, how long does it take to go through the Proven Amazon course? And I say, I don't think anyone will ever know.
Yeah.
It's like saying, how long would it take me to read all the books in the library? Well, by the time you started to think you had done it, there's all new books in there. The old stuff's been updated and, some of the outdated stuff's been purged and
Yeah.
there's always more to learn. So we
Yeah.
teach you what you need when you need it. That's the
Right.
e-commerce journey, the way that we teach it.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out. Well, what else did you
And
want
for
to talk about?
very inexpensive too. So for those who are
Yeah,
thinking, no, it's
$29 a month.
thousands and thousands,
Right.
very
Yeah,
reasonable. So the other thing
absolutely.
I want to point out is, this year is like end of year. People are beginning to think about next year. If you have budget, you budget training and development in your budget and put it in your budget if you can. Go to the Proven Conference, because I went and it's like transformational. It's where I met people that I think you were doing runs and I was doing walks, because I like the walks, and I met people there that has become, after the conference, we form accountability groups.
Oh
So I have
yeah, I
like
saw
two or
you
three
on I saw you a couple times when we were out running.
yeah, because I would have a call out to say I'm doing walk at 7 a.m. Anyone wants to come? And so
That's
the
right.
beginning day there's maybe one person. The second day there was like three, and then by the time it's like the end, the fourth day when we're about to check out, there's like 9 or 10, and there's like whoa. And
Yeah.
those people that I was walking with, we
Mhm.
form accountability groups with some
That's
of them, and
awesome.
so
Well, you'll have to
um,
advertise that early on because typically we'll have a Facebook group for our
yeah,
live events and
yeah,
just announce those things. So we're ready day one, maybe even come early and stay late. Plenty of people come a couple days early and stay a couple days late to these things. People
yeah,
don't believe me until they go to their first one and they see that yeah, the event itself is only part of the attraction of this
right,
community, the people that you're around. And we have
yeah,
so much in common as business building warriors. I think that really kind of captures we're familiar with the wounds and the challenges and the
hmm,
trials and the
yeah,
victories. We're kind of strange in that regard. And so you get around like-minded people, it feels like almost like a, one of those Comic-Con for the people who are into that. It's like it's the equivalent
yeah,
of that, but for
yeah.
e-commerce nerds, right?
Yeah, no one gets started talking about Amazon. I mean, you talk about Amazon from 7 a.m. with your walk partners, and then at the end of the day, it's okay. People can talk about it. You talk the same language. You can only talk so much about your interest with your family, but
Right.
when you're there in a conference, doesn't matter. Everyone's interested. You
Yeah.
can keep talking about it.
One of the lessons I shared the first day I emphasized this year was do you remember the 2-word question that I encouraged everyone that this is a little test? I don't see if you
Yes.
remember. Do you
Uh,
remember what it
uh,
was? The 2-word
uh,
question that I wanted you to use the whole
yeah,
event?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was it?
How's business?
Exactly.
And the
Yeah, you
moment you
were
ask that, oh, they're so enthusiastic. They're
yeah.
happy to share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you get out in the real world and no one asks you that.
yeah,
And if you ask anyone that, they look at you like you're an alien. But here, that's a
yeah.
great question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Good tip. Actually, good tip.
Yeah.
It
Well,
kept on
what
reading.
else do you want to talk about? What else is on your mind?
Just early
People are going to
learnings
wonder if
again.
I hired you as an actor for like as a marketing paid shill or
Possible.
something. You're
So
just so
early
excited
learnings. I
about
guess
all
I
this.
want to share to people who's kind of new or starting. Just list on an existing ASIN. You don't need to create a new list. Just list on anything that you're allowed to list,
Great tip.
and if it maybe not a lot, just list on it. Just find it, and when you find one, be happy with that one. And then what you can do, what I've done is, like, when I have a brand that I was approved on, I went to like seller central,
Central. Yeah.
and you like add a product, type in the brand, and then that's my initial on how I did it. It's like I type in the brand, and then there's like 500 asins of that brand, and I just went one at a time. Okay, am I approved to this? No, not approved. Okay, but out of the 500, I found 13. So I
Mhm.
used the 13 and I bought three of each of the 13. And that's how kind of like I started growing and
That's a
getting
great
more
tip.
excited.
We
Yeah.
had one student point that out. It's been quite a while ago, but you just pointed out a great tip. There's so many ways to find great replens.
Yeah.
I actually just recorded a few days ago. It hasn't been published yet. An episode of a bunch of different ways to find replens. I left this one out. There's so many cool tips, but
Yeah.
like you just said, you go into Seller Central like you're setting up a new listing, and you type in a brand and see
Yeah.
what pre-populates.
Right.
All those ASINs could be potential
Show up.
replens. Go through, research them,
I
or
went
have
through
your
it.
VA
500 of them.
research them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, went through it. And then ship weekly. It doesn't matter if it's 1 box, 3 boxes every week. Because that will just Amazon
At
want
a
to see the
minimum.
metrics that you're reliable seller, that you're going to send it.
Yeah.
That you're consistent. And for
Yeah.
me, it took 2.5 months, and after that, it opened up for me, and it opened up everything. And even if you are like request to sell, you just hit that request to sell and you get approved, because they see that you've been sending consistently
Yes.
for over 2 months. So that's a good thing.
We see
And
some
then-
people out there charging money and maybe hundreds of dollars that have courses or books or content on how to get ungated. We're like, no, just go sell about 50 things, and suddenly
Yeah.
the gates
Yeah, and
fly
then-
open. And you're just
yeah.
clicking buttons and getting ungated and anything and
Right.
everything.
Yeah. Then there's the ungating process where they ask you to show proof of purchase. I got that down pat. I mean, just
Yeah,
10
no big
of
deal.
one thing.
Mhm.
I applied 38 minutes. I got approved from the time I purchased the 10th thing. Apply it. I got it already. So it's
Don't ever pay anybody for ungating services or advice. It's
Yeah,
just
not needed.
sell a few things.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
key
not
is
needed.
consistency in shipping. That's I
Yes.
think consistency.
Yeah,
in
it
sending
is
products.
consistency in shipping, and once they see that you're a serious seller and they trust you, which takes a little time, a couple months, and 50 units sold, the gates really do start to fall open.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so I have a lot of aspirations. I feel like I'm just in the beginning of my journey. Amazon is such a great place to be when you're trying to build a business. It's a global company. For me, it resonates with me, global, international. There's other avenues. I want to do brand building, branded bundles later on. I want to do sourcing. There's a lot of sourcing in the China, but later on when I'm able, a lot of the name brands actually were made in the Philippines. People don't know that, but maybe sourcing from the Philippines, I might, do that, or write a book. You talked about that. I might write a
Yeah.
book.
Oh, absolutely.
I
Is there
might do
some
a-
manufacturing in the Philippines? Like, is that?
There's quite a few manufacturers. So, I'm thinking maybe I could I'm an event planner. I'm a professional. So maybe I'd do a sourcing trip, like
Yeah,
we can do. Once I figure it
absolutely.
out,
Yes.
I'll do it myself first, and then we'll see how we can do. Because
Yeah.
then you'll help more people there, very skillful. And it's really a great way to help people. The business, volunteering for nonprofits is great. And I think people, do that. But building a business, when you're actually not giving a fish, but you're teaching people to fish. Oh my
That's
God,
right.
that's like amazing to be able
That's
to do
right.
that. So empowering.
Have you
That's-
ever heard me talk about the Hebrew lesson, the 8 levels of giving, the
I
thousands
think
and thousands?
I heard you mention those in one of your podcasts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I won't go through all 8 of them for the sake of those who maybe haven't heard, Marchell, because this speaks exactly to what you're saying.
Mhm.
It's always virtuous to give. It's always virtuous to help someone else. But in the Hebrew culture, there's 8 levels of giving. It's broken down. So the lowest level is begrudgingly giving someone something so they'll leave you alone. Like someone's begging in the street and they're persistent and they're tugging on your jacket and like, here's $1, leave me alone. That was virtuous. But it's not the highest level of virtue. The highest level of virtue, kind of like you said, give a man a fish versus teach him to fish. Well, the highest level is enabling him to become a giver himself. And so that's what we see ourselves doing around here, is teaching people how to grow businesses. And better yet, students come along like you who are seeing the success and they start thinking, okay, wait a second. I could leverage my life experiences and the connections I have and the success I have and create a new way to train this community on how to succeed even further. So now are you not only helping people learn to fish, you're teaching them how to teach other people to fish. Are you with me? It's like that highest level possible of virtue when it comes to giving and generosity. And so I'm excited to see that you're processing it this way.
Yeah.
I see leadership future in this community or wherever else you go and do, but very exciting to be on this journey of, I just loved hearing your story today. Well, did you have anything else for me? Any questions or any other tips? You gave some great pointers. What else is on your mind?
Just more of like my challenges right now, how to scale, how to automate. I know outsourcing and just as much as you can. I think the challenge of balancing between, I still have a job, I'm still working the job, and how, that and growing the business at the same time.
Still
Time is
full
limited.
time?
Still full time. Yeah, still full
Wow.
time.
Okay. I hadn't picked up on that you were still full time.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
full time. So time is limited. So trying to live a balanced life, still trying to do that. And I really latched on to biblical with the Rabbi Lapin's book. I read that. You
Oh,
recommended
business
it. I read it.
secrets from the Bible. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got
and
my
then
copy right there.
and came across the 5 F's of faith, family, finances, friendships, and fitness. I tried to like have
You
some buckets
rattled
of,
that off very
yeah. So
well.
I
You
just
have
have
been
like this
listening.
buckets of what in finances, what in faith, and so just having that balance and not lose sight, because I before I would just work, but no, that's not, just having it balanced. And so how
Mhm.
to increase efficiencies, finding good people, how to maximize use of software. I mean, those are my challenges right now, and I know there's an answer. Throw a question in the community, someone will answer you, or go to the pack and you'll find modules there. So
Yeah. The
yeah.
answer to every challenge you're facing right now is a person,
Ah.
as we like to say around here. It's a relationship.
Mm,
Sometimes it'll be a skill, but that skill leads you to a group of people who are working and addressing the same challenge at the same time you are. And now you're in a group of people. And so during the journey, the next step is always adding more people into your life or more people into your business, more relationships. That's a Hebrew lesson, again, a biblical lesson, but you're well on your way to making that happen. Did you have anything like specific? You introduced a whole bunch of things, and I saw all of those as you were kind of going through your list. These are all things that you will never arrive.
mm,
You're on a great trajectory towards achieving. There's always new software, there's always a new skill or new strategy or a new way to improve or outsource a new module in the proven Amazon course that represents, you mentioned brand building and building branded bundles. That's a module in the course. You'll be experimenting with that soon. But are there any specific questions maybe you want to kick around with me and take advantage of the time that we have here before we start to wrap this one up?
not specific. I think,
Nothing.
yeah, I think just it would, you did mention people is the answer to most of my questions. Having the extra people, you talked about grow. I think you advised of having a virtual assistant to help with the sourcing part,
Yeah.
so that by the time maybe at the end of my workday, all I have to do is review lists, and instead
Hmm.
of to just wait to duplicate myself. Um,
And that would be a good reminder for right now for those who are
yeah,
thinking, hey, automate everything. Sounds great. Well, who's the first person I should hire? And I've been saying this a lot lately for a few years because I see some people get it out of order. And in my opinion, this is kind of Dave Ramsey advice too. I heard him give this advice years ago and I adopted it into the e-commerce arenas. He says, you've got to find someone to go out and kill a bear and drag it back to the cave. That's your first
yeah,
hire. Someone else who's
yeah.
doing the
So,
hard work of
mhm,
finding revenue,
yeah.
finding profit.
Mhm.
So what's that in e-commerce? Well, it's someone who's going out and finding replens, someone else who's out there finding new products that you can sell. That's the first hire. Because once you've got that, now you've got some extra margin you can play with to start to automate some of the systems. But you don't want to just make convenience hires.
Mm,
Like, "Ah, I don't like doing this. I don't feel like it. I'm not motivated to do that. So I'm just going to hire somebody to do that role." If you think that way, you're going to find yourself just meeting payroll for a bunch of people while you scramble to try to come up with enough revenue, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you find someone who can generate revenue as your great first hire. So that means a VA that you train, probably from the Philippines, ideally, or use our proven Replens VA program and we'll assign one to you. Kyle oversees that program. Those are your first best hires from our vantage point. If you're going to bring someone onto your team, find someone else who finds great inventory with you. But that's for your sake, Marchell, and for anyone else out there who's maybe considering the journey. Well done. You've built a beautiful business. I hope you hit your 20K for December. Here we are on the tail end. We'll know soon enough. But give
Yeah.
us a post. I love seeing your updates in the Facebook group. Keep those coming. And sounds like we'll see you in hopefully in July at the Proven Conference.
Yes, yes. So I just want to say thank you, Jim, for building this community. It's the most warm cheerleaders, encouragers in the group, sellers who want to see other sellers succeed. There's nothing like it. You talk about the candle being the candle, and everything is transformed by it. It's not a pie that everyone, when it's gone, when it's, everyone has to share, but not in this
Candlelight versus
community.
cake. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a Rabbi Daniel Lappin lesson.
Yeah, yeah. So, if my life were a book and there's 10 chapters, right now where I am, I'm on chapter 5. So the best is yet to come. I'm
That
so
is a
excited about that.
powerful word image. I love word
Yeah,
images.
yeah.
That is a powerful, you're on chapter 5, and I'm honored that our community is a big part of that chapter, an exciting chapter. And it just occurs to me that I think reading between the lines of the way this episode might impact some people, I love those episodes where maybe some people who are kind of feeling down or feeling sorry for themselves or feeling a little beat up are kind of confronted with somebody who has every reason to feel more down and more beat up and more negative than you do. And they're not. They're positive, they're up, they're achieving, they're doing things. And you're forced to kind of confront that person can come out of a scenario where she lost both her parents and raised all of her siblings as a 20-year-old and got to this point. Okay, I can suck it up and get through this. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people, Marchell. So thank you for sharing your story so transparently today.
Thanks for having me. It's an
Yeah,
honor and a
it's
pleasure.
truly an honor for me as well. Well, I'm going to talk to the listeners for just a moment, those who hung out with us today as we wrap this episode up. And you can see why I say all the time, this is the best part of my job. Just incredible hanging out with the business building warriors of this community. We've got hundreds of episodes like this. If this happens to be one of the first few episodes you've heard, scroll back in time. Get over to silentjim.com. Scroll through. We've got 560 something episodes at this point, most of which are interviews with our successful students from our community. Some have just gotten started. Some have built 6-figure a month businesses that are running hands free. We got everything in between. But we'd love to have you listen to some episodes and then jump in to our community. There's a free link again at silentjim.com into our free Facebook group. If you're ready to get going, as Marchell talked about so eloquently today, the Proven Amazon course is the next good step, or jump into our coaching program as well. All of that, all the links to anything you ever need, silentjim.com. It's the only link you need as a fan of this show. But one last time, on behalf of the whole team around here that's just going to love hearing this episode and the community that's going to love it, Marchell, you were tremendous. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And tell your family thanks for loaning you to us for a little while. I was running a little late on you today. I appreciate your flexibility. And so from the team, God bless all the business building warriors out there. As Marchell said, hey, we're in your corner. We're rooting for you. We're here for you. Anything we can do to help, please let us know. Reach out. We'll have another great episode for you real soon. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me for today's episode. I hope you learned a lot of good stuff. Just one last reminder before I let you go, jump over to provenamazoncourse.com and take advantage of our current pricing. It'll never be this low again. As we celebrate Christmas 2022, we've got our buy one, get one free offer going on Proven Amazon Course, which means if you jump in, you can give it away to a friend as well. All details are at provenamazoncourse.com. We'll give you another great episode very soon. Can't wait to see you then.